All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Wednesday, January 8th, and we have an 8-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you absolutely free. That'll take you to all of my final plays, so I'm actually rolling with myself, if that does interest you. In terms of how we did yesterday, we go, well, it's 2 and 3 from a win-loss perspective. That Heat and Warriors over, we split a unit, so it's essentially a 2 and 2 night, still losing a little bit off the top, and it's frustrating because, one, the Pritchard look, that might have been my favorite play on the board, and Derek White gets ruled out. I even get more giddy about it, and then he goes out there and does not shoot well. He finishes with, I think, 3 and 4, so only 7 points plus assists. That was a dud, right? But that Heat and Warriors one, I have a little gripe in that one. I mean, they needed like 10 points. I'm going to exaggerate here, but they needed like 10 points with 5 minutes to go. I saw back-to-back shot clock violations from the Warriors. The minute I turned it on, all of a sudden it was like they just stalled in time. So that was an unfortunate one. And like I said, I'm a little frustrated because if you go back and watch yesterday's video, all but I think one of our spread leans ended up hitting. We just didn't take our own damn advice. You know what I mean? So that's the cross we bear here, I guess. I didn't have the cojones to roll with some of my plays that I liked yesterday, like Hornets money line or Jazz plus the points. So unfortunately, we do have a 2 and 2 night from a units perspective, 2 and 3 from a win-loss perspective. And you know what? If we just had a little bit more quantity out there, could have been a little bit better. But you know what? We can't take credit for the woulda, coulda, shouldas now, can we? Now, what we can take credit for, and as I say we, I mean, XCal takes full credit because I'm not taking any credit for this one. The ride of the day does cash from XCal. Klay Thompson under 22.5 PRA. You know what? Let's pump in some damn crowd noise as well. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it's simple. Just use that hashtag ride of the day in the comments or ROTD. Give me your favorite play. I give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. Also give you a shout out over on my X here. And yeah, if you win, we continue to ride with your play. So looking forward to seeing what XCal throws out today. If you lose, we do got to talk about it. We give you the womp womp from the soundboard, but you still do get the shout out in the next video. So go ahead and drop those hashtag ride of the days because, you know, even though we're riding with XCal today, you never know if he doesn't come with a play or we can't find it or his play is too juiced, we may have to pivot to someone else. So yeah, and you're helping out so many people in the comments. Like there's so many good looks in the comment section of these videos. So make sure to get your hashtag ride of the days in down there. But what do you say we dive into today's slate? A couple good games here. There are some mass spots, but you know what? We're at that point in the NBA season where those are unavoidable. But let's dive into game number 1. Make sure you guys hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. We have Indiana taking on Chicago. Now, one big thing to note before we even get into this one is Tyrese Haliburton is listed as questionable game time decision. So that's obviously going to impact this game greatly. You know what I mean? So I'm assuming for now, at least for this breakdown, that Tyrese Haliburton is going to play. I don't see any reason why I should sit there and say that he's not, right? So if he doesn't play, maybe throw everything out the window or flip and do the opposite of what I say, I guess. But we have Tyrese Haliburton questionable, and I do like Indiana in this spot. Now, for one specific reason, but I want to talk about both these teams as of late. So Indiana, 7 of their last 10 games, they've taken the dub, 7 and 3 against the spread. Chicago, 6 of their last 4 they've won, 5-4-1 against the number here. They've also hit 7 unders out of their last 10 games, which I do think is worth noting because these Chicago games, those numbers are getting up there. Right now we're sitting at 240.5, which does make a little bit of sense, right? You have 2 fast-paced teams. Even though Indiana's pace numbers may not look it, you know they're always due for a fast game, right? Both teams have won 4 of their last 5 games and have covered in 4 of the last 5. So you have 2 teams playing some good basketball. So where do we make our decision? And we'll jump into our NBA dashboard to kind of just show the, I guess what I would say is the determining factor here. We'll talk about how you guys can access this exact dashboard in just a second. But the thing that I'm looking at is right here, this interior defense for Chicago. Now, Indiana, over the last 10 games, are shooting the ball in the paint the 5th most times, not necessarily in the restricted area, but in the paint. So that's going to be kind of restricted area extended to the foul line, right? But you can see Chicago 30th in terms of points allowed in the paint this season. Last 3 games, now they've been playing good basketball, right? Last 3 games, still second to last, 71% at the restricted area and 47% in terms of field goal percentage in the paint against them. So I do think that that is going to be the biggest thing that I'm focusing on here, especially throwing the fact that, yeah, Chicago's going to shoot a ton of threes, right? Well, Indiana's perimeter defense hasn't been all that terrible. I mean, you look at their above the break here, 33% allowed to opponents over the last 10 games. So that is definitely the determining factor for me. Like, yes, I do see a path for both teams. If Tyrese Halliburton doesn't play, then I might even flip to Chicago plus the 6 points. But if he does play, I don't think 6 is all that crazy. I would love, like, I have this at more of a 4.5 number. So yes, it's a little bit different than where I peg it. But if Indiana can get into the paint and score in the paint, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to control a game when at home. Last time they played as well, Indiana won this thing by I think it was 9 points, and that was in Chicago, and that was only a month ago. So this is an Indiana spot for me, again, barring him playing, Tyrese Halliburton. Now, before we get to the total and player props, I will talk to you guys about the membership there. It's over on GuyBostonSports.com. It's brand new. You can head over here to the members page. You'll see something that says view membership levels. If you are logged in, you will see this, which I think is something really, really cool that we're doing. You get this dashboard for each and every game. It's broken out. If we open this up, you can see each and every game is broken out. And what this is all of the crucial stats that I look at and a lot of people look at day to day. I pull from all of the various websites out there and put it into one visual so you guys have it, right? And newly added, we have isolation offense and defense, as well as some player projections. Now, these projections per player, if you see a number, they are accurate and we do trust it based on our algorithms, right? But we do have a couple spots in which we're still pulling some NAs and whatnot, but it's getting a little bit better. See, Isaac Okoro here, NAs. So not everybody is playing. Injuries and new guys to the lineup are kind of impacting that, but I think that's a really, really cool addition, especially for people that like to roll with a lot of player props. So yeah, head over there, GuyBostonSports.com. You can also just find it with the final plays down in the pinned comment. But in terms of a total here, guys, this is kind of one that I think might be controversial, but I don't mind the idea of an under. I think that the Pacers and Bulls, the two teams playing here, should be looking to score in the paint. The Bulls obviously have been a fast-paced team all year long, and like I said, the Pacers can play at a fast pace, but if these two teams are counting by twos, 241 is going to be a lot. Now, I say that, and the last time they played, they nearly combined for 260, right? So it's a slight lean towards the under. We've had some really good looks with Bulls unders this year. We've also got burned sometimes because of the lack there of defense and whatnot. So I like the under just because I don't see the Bulls having the easiest time shooting, but you even flip it over to, well, the Bulls shooting in the paint. It's not like the Pacers have the best defense, so I guess you can make an argument for the over, but I'm sticking to the under. Now, in terms of player props, I have a same-game parlay that I'm kind of kicking around right now. I'm trying to wait out to see if we can get some decent odds, but looking at something between Benedict Mathurin and Pascal Siakam. If we can massage their lines a little bit, right now Mathurin's at 16.5 and Siakam's at, I think it was 20.5. We can massage their numbers a little bit, put them together, say, maybe Pascal Siakam either 18 or 15 plus, and then Benedict Mathurin, say, I would probably put him at either 12 or 15 plus. Being able to get them in those ranges, I think could be a nice little look because both those guys like to score in the paint. So, for example, right now in DK, again, we're waiting out the odds to kind of see where, Tyrese Halliburton lands and whatnot. But right now, if you did it, Pascal 18 plus and Benedict Mathurin 12 plus, that's minus 145 over on DK. I don't mind that. You get a little bit more risky for plus 110, Pascal 18, Benedict 15. The reason I like those guys is those are the guys that are going to get into the paint, not necessarily just at the rim, but they'll stop and pop from, like we talked about, outside of that restricted area as well. So two decent player prop looks. I don't like their normal lines. They're a little bit juiced, a little bit too high for me. If Tyrese Halliburton doesn't play, then yes, I don't mind them, but we want to wait out that news for sure. All right, Cleveland taking on OKC. Looks like we're going to have a very, very good game here on our hands. Obviously, you have, at least in terms of my power rankings, you have the number 1 and the number 3 team playing each other. I post those power rankings on that same website, Guy Boston Sports. We're utilizing that website a lot more, making it really fun and cool over there. So I have the Thunder at the number 1 team and the Cavs at the number 3 team so far this season. A lot of factors go into that, which should be a very good game. And the Thunder just played the Celtics, too, in the last game. They beat them by 13 points. Now, as a Celtics fan, I can make the argument that game was closer than it looked, but nonetheless, a 13-point win is a 13-point win, right? Thunder 10-0 in their last 10, Cleveland 9-1. We have a battle on our hands. Now, before I even give my side here, I will say, if you're saying that someone's stupid for making either argument for either team here, then you're probably the stupid one. Either team can take the cake here. You have Cleveland, who's a phenomenal team and really good defensively, and you can say the exact same thing about the Thunder, right? So I do think that this is a spot for the Thunder. If you're going to get the Thunder as underdogs, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't look at that, right? I mean, plus 120 is some really good value. Can Cleveland win this one? Obviously, and they're favorites, and they're at home, so I totally get it, but when else are you going to get the Thunder at plus 120, right? And both teams kind of match up fairly well against one another, so I do like the idea of a potential lean towards the under. You have OKC, who if they shoot a lot in the paint, well, Cleveland's not all that terrible in the paint, right? 7th fewest points allowed. At the rim right now, 62% field goal percentage, 41% in the paint, so outside of the restricted area. And then you have Cleveland, who's going to chuck a bunch of threes. Well, OKC, the number 4 team in terms of points from 3 so far this season, and above the break threes, which is where they shoot a ton from, 30.1% field goal percentage against. So I think both teams can play some good defense here. I like the idea of an under 230 and a player prop that I would probably consider. Also, one thing I will say is that OKC isolates a ton, and this is not the best Cleveland defense against isolation. You know Shea's going to be able to take it, and if he does get to the rim, we may have some success. But I'm not looking at any player prop overs or anything. One thing I was saying is that if I were to look at some player props, I might consider like an Evan Mobley under or something like that. Right now, you have Evan Mobley. He's sitting at, I think it's 17.5, which obviously, so he's been 18.5 at times, 19.5 too. So obviously, the odds have been taken into account that this guy likes to score in the paint. But, OKC against power forwards, 3rd fewest points allowed. In terms of, like I said, points in the paint, the number 1 team in the league. Where's Evan Mobley shooting his shots from? In the paint, right? So far in the last 10 games here, Evan Mobley is going to shoot 6 times from the paint, in the restricted area, 3 times in the paint, so outside of the restricted area. Above the break 3, he'll take a couple per game, but he's not the best shooter there. And even if he does, OKC can still cover that. So I would look at that one, but I think this may just be, if I'm being completely honest, a game in which we either go under or nothing. I think OKC, yes, I can convince myself that plus 120 makes sense, right? But Cleveland can win this one. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland wins this one by 10 because that team is very, very good and still very, very underrated, and they're more healthy. I mean, no Alex Caruso on the side of OKC. Obviously, we know about Chetty Holmgren. Like, there are levels to this thing in terms of making an argument for Cleveland, right? But I just don't know when you're going to get OKC as an underdog again. So I'll take them in this spot. In terms of, you might make the argument of anything, they have look-ahead spots, like they're beginning a long road trip right now. I don't think any of those games are going to matter more to them than tonight. And Cleveland actually has a game tomorrow, so maybe they pull their foot off the gas at the end. I doubt it. They have Toronto tomorrow, but nonetheless, it's probably under or nothing for me. And then I would go potentially OKC money line, and then I would go, I guess, Evan Mobley's under. But that Evan Mobley under, like, the dude is super talented. He's got one of the best plus minuses, I think, this season too, right? So do we really want to mess with that? Not sure. If Cleveland dominates here, Mobley's going to have a lot to do with it. Speaking of dominating, how about this for a transition? Go ahead and dominate your sleeper picks entries with this 0.5 square from Wemby, guys. Go ahead and check it out. That link will be down in the pinned comment and the description. Playing Milwaukee tonight. Tough matchup. But his normal line's 26.5. Sleepers bringing it all the way down to 0.5 for you. And they have a couple more things. It's Wednesday. They always do discounts on Wednesdays as well. So you'll probably have a couple NBA or at least one NBA, maybe an NFL discount coming out as well. So you have the Wemby one, the Wildcard Wednesdays that they do. That's about 3 discounts. And then my favorite thing, like I've been telling you guys, is the Play 5, Get 55 deal. I don't know how long they're going to do this for, but I would take advantage while you can. Like, this is so much, in my opinion, I don't know if I should say this, but I'll be a little honest here. This is so much better than the deposit matches and whatnot, because obviously the deposit match matters how much you put in. This doesn't. You're a new customer, you play just $5, you 11x that right away. And say you win that entry, you still get that payout as well. It's really, really cool, guys. Go check out Sleeper Picks. That link is down in the description as well as the pinned comment. I've been using Sleeper, like I tell you guys, for over 2 years now. It's one of my favorite DFS player apps out there, guys. All you do is combine 2 or more players into a slip. The more you win, the more you get paid out. And what's cool about Sleeper is that each and every player has its own unique multiplier for the stat that you're choosing and the projection you're choosing. So they don't just follow fixed payout structure. structure like a lot of other apps. Go check it out, guys. You will not regret it. They do tons of promos and discounts, which is why these DFS apps have some value. So go ahead and check it out. That link will be down below. But let's jump back into these games here. This one we can kind of breeze through to some degree. We have New York taking on Toronto here. This Toronto team I'm selling on. I'm not all that big on. We saw Milwaukee kind of stomp them. New York's coming off of 3 straight losses. We'll look at the injury report because Karl Anthony Towns missed last game. He is listed as questionable here. Same thing with Deuce McBride. If those guys play, I do think New York sort of rights the ship here in this one. And just due to the fact that, well, Toronto, their defense isn't going to look all that great, right? New York should be able to score in the paint as well as from 3, and they've been shooting a lot in the paint, so I would target some guys that score in the paint. Toronto also, you know, that sort of, we've been talking about a lot in this video, that in the paint but near the foul line area is definitely a weak spot for them defensively. So if you want to target someone on the Knicks player prop wise that likes to shoot from there, that's Jalen Brunson's stop and pop spot. You know what I mean? Like, I might like his position here better than Towns, especially given the fact that Towns may miss. So give me the Knicks minus the points as well as Brunson. But to be honest, you guys should be able to tell by my voice, like, this is kind of just like, well, I can't get to the Toronto side of things, and I think the Knicks get it right. We didn't dig into this one for, you know, a long time like we normally do prior to. This is kind of just a fade Toronto, give me the Knicks type of a spot as long as Towns plays. In terms of a total here, I would say Knicks team total over, right? Like, Toronto can push the pace, which we would love if that's the case. I don't know if Toronto is going to have the easiest time scoring, right? Like, this Toronto team, their offense, I don't want to sit here and say that they're consistent. Yes, you know, they'll get quickly back and stuff like that. RJ Barrett, I believe, is expected to go here. Like, they should be healthy, which should help maybe an over because this Toronto team, when healthy, does play at a good pace. But I don't see how Toronto can stop the Knicks either, right? So this may just be like a Knicks team total over, say, 118.5 or something like that. But again, out of some of the games on this board, including the next one, actually, we didn't spend a boatload of time here because we do have a lot of other value spots. So just being transparent with you guys, take what I'm saying with somewhat of a grain of salt. Like I said, same thing with this Philadelphia and Washington matchup as well. We didn't spend too much time on it, but we do have a decision, I guess, to make now. Washington coming off of playing, yesterday they played a game against the, who'd they play? Houston. We had Alperen Sengun in that one, right? They lose by, it was like 23 points. No kidding. This Washington team stinks. Philadelphia, though, has been sort of up and down, and I'm starting to notice, not that it's like groundbreaking news, but this is very much a Joel Embiid somewhat dependent team. Like, Tyrese Maxey is doing well, but they're losing a lot of these games that Joel Embiid's not playing in, and Joel Embiid is ruled out today. Same thing with Paul George. Now it's going to be Tyrese Maxey, Oubre, Gordon, Martin, and then Drummond's listed as the starting center, but he's questionable, so there's a ton of injuries to keep an eye on here. You flip it over to the Washington side of things, you do have the same thing. Jordan Poole listed as questionable. Now, he missed yesterday. Hopefully he would play today if you do like Washington. Same thing with Kyle Kuzma. He is listed as questionable as well. If you do want to look at this game and really truly break it down, I would say that this is a spot in which Washington doesn't exactly have the easiest scoring options, and Philadelphia should be able to score at will. But if it's Tyrese Maxey and then I don't think that that's exactly the best spot. And Philadelphia, if they do want to dominate this, I think that they end up slowing it down. So I guess to some degree, I lean towards Washington plus the 11. Do I get there myself? I really don't think so. This Washington team is yet to cover this season on a back-to-back, but Philadelphia, with rest advantage, has only covered in 12% of their games, so it's not like they're sitting here in a great position either. And Philadelphia has been much better on the road this year than they have at home. At home, they've only covered in 26% of games. Their record at home is 5-10 compared to their 9-10 record on the road. So yeah, I sounded the cycle alert alarm. I get that this is a weird one, and I don't think I touch it myself. This is one of those, like I talked about at the beginning of the video, like, I don't know if I have the cojones to roll with it myself, but I don't necessarily love the idea of laying that big number without George, without Embiid, as the Sixers. No Kyle Lowry, too, if you want to put any stock into that. If Drummond misses this one, then all of a sudden you're taking away something that where centers do a lot of damage against this Washington team, points in the paint and whatnot. Now you're down to your third-string center for Philadelphia. So, yeah, screw it. Give me Washington plus the points. I don't know if I get there myself, but I would caution anyone at looking at Philadelphia. Even if Philly wins by 20, I still think it was fair to kind of like just sit this one out. You know what I mean? A lot of injuries and that type of thing. All right, guys, before we jump into this one, go ahead and comment 19 down below. You made it 19 minutes into the video, and let me know The NBA player that comes to your mind, this is going to be a tough one. I don't want you using Google or anything, but if you have to, you have to. The NBA player that comes to mind when you think about the number 19. That is a weird NBA number. I get it. I do have one, just kind of having some Celtics ties and whatnot. Now, he didn't wear 19 for the Celtics, but Sam Cassell, if I'm not mistaken, in fact, I should look that up before I say it like an idiot, right? Sam Cassell is someone that I think about when I think about 19. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Sam Cassell, 19 there on the Clips, 19 on the Wolves, so I wasn't that crazy. Okay, good. I was like, I just about to make a fool of myself if he never wore 19, but that's what I think about when I think about the number 19, which is a really obscure NBA number, isn't it? So let me know in the comments who you think about or who comes to mind when you think about wearing number 19 in the NBA. But let's dive into this one. We got Brooklyn taking on Detroit. Not exactly the creme de la creme of games today, but this Detroit team's playing some good basketball. They've beat some good teams. They've stomped on some bad teams, right? Brooklyn, on the other hand, kind of in limbo, 3-7 over their last 10 games. Coming at it from an injury report perspective, that was way harder to be said than it needed to be. Ben Simmons listed as questionable, and then you got a bunch of guys that are out. D'Angelo Russell out, Cam Johnson out, Bogdanovich still out, and then Cam Thomas is out as well. On the Detroit side of things, Jaden Ivey and Thompson looks like he's going to be out. Asir Thompson out as well. So starting lineup-wise, Detroit definitely has the advantage. They're 8-point favorites. That's a little bit too much for me to get comfortable with. But what I will say is, this Brooklyn team, even though they're out a bunch of guys, they should be able to score in the paint somewhat against this Detroit team. From the perimeter against this Detroit team. Now, do they need Cam Thomas, D'Angelo Russell? Sure. I don't know if Keon Johnson, Zaire Williams are going to shoot, but stats are stats, right? So I don't know if I touch this one, but I think 8 may be a little bit too much. Now, what concerns me, if you are looking at Brooklyn, is the fact that, if they can't shoot, are they going to try and take it into the paint? That has not been their forte all season long. So I rarely do this, but probably just a full-fledged pass. And honestly, I think you're a psycho. You're psycho if you have something in this game in terms of a side. If you want to look at it from a player prop perspective, then sure, I do think that we could see, someone like, I guess I would want to say someone sitting there like Malik Beasley, who with Jaden Ivey out, I do think is going to have more and more production. Now, that first game without Malik Beasley looked really good. The next game, he only had 5 points, right? He played 29 minutes. He shot, I think it was 1 of 10 from the field. I wouldn't get, too wrapped up in that. This is still a guy over his last 3 games against Brooklyn, scored 17, 16, and 18. In terms of minutes played, those were in 22 minutes, 30 minutes, 29 minutes. If Malik Beasley gets the minutes, so say he goes out there and plays 29 minutes, he's had over 16.5 points in 75% of his games this year. You can look at him from a 3-point perspective, too. I mean, if he plays 30 minutes, so say 29 or more, so just under 30, 75% of his games, he's hit 4 threes, and you're getting plus money right now. So I think Malik Beasley could still be sort of a look here. I'm not getting turned off by his last game. I would look at potentially his points plus assists because, on the season, he's only averaging 2.9 potential assists. Like I said, when he does play more and more minutes, he's going to have a few more potential assists. And over his last 5 games, so obviously with no Jaden Ivey, he does get another potential assist added. And if they swarm him or kind of force him, his assist line only bumps this thing up by 2. So it's 16.5 points compared to 18.5 points plus assists. So yeah, Malik Beasley definitely a look and probably the only thing that I would look at in this game. Like I mentioned, I do think that Brooklyn, if they hit their shots, could score, but I don't know who's going to be taking them. So I lean over. 212.5 just seems super, super low, but a lot of injuries to consider here. So I probably look at Beasley or nothing in this one. I just let out the biggest sneeze. We'll make sure to cut that. Now you weirdos are going to be like, no, let's hear the sneeze. You do not want to hear my sneeze. The neighbors probably get mad when I sneeze. Anyways, let's dive into the next game here. We got the Pelicans taking on Portland, 2 sort of bottom of the barrel teams. In fact, power rankings wise, I have the Pelicans as the number 30 team now, and the Trailblazers as the number 28 team. Yes, Washington moving out of the gutter spot in terms of Ev's power rankings. Now, Portland's coming off of a game against Detroit, which was a couple days ago. They lose by, what was it, 3, right? We had DeAndre Ayton in that one, and DeAndre Ayton came through for us. Now, the Pelicans coming off of, honestly, a pretty hard-fought win, I would say, hard-fought game in a loss against the Timberwolves yesterday. Now, Zion Williamson still listed in the starting lineup. That being said, he just came back from injury. Is he really going to play in back-to-backs here? I'm not sure. Yesterday, he ended up playing, I think it was like 28 minutes or something. So, yeah, he didn't get full starter minutes, but he played a decent amount. And the team definitely is better with him. Like, I think that much is for sure. You know what I mean? Like, he comes out and all of a sudden Minnesota kind of pulls away in a sense. So this is, I guess you could say, somewhat of an interesting one. What I would look at here is kind of going right back to the well. Now, DeAndre Ayton made us some dough last time we took him, and we may be getting a little bit greedy here, but I don't mind his over 14.5 points here. I think that he can get 15. Last time he played the Pelicans, he had 19 points. The time before that, he had 17. The time before that, he had 10, but all three of those games were this season, so he's only gone up, and up. Minutes played wise, he's averaged over 34 minutes per game against this Pelicans team in the last couple years here. So if we look at DeAndre Ayton playing 30 plus minutes this season, he's hitting 11 of 14 games, right? So I really don't mind the spot from Pelicans to centers on the season, 19th most in terms of points allowed. That's the same in the last 7 games as well. But this could also be a spot in which he grabs a decent amount of rebounds. Like, why wouldn't DeAndre Ayton be able to sort of, I don't want to say dominate, but be able to dominate Misi and potentially a limited Zion Williamson down there? You know what I mean? Like, this should be one of, if not the biggest guy on the floor at most times. So yeah, I like the idea of him grabbing some boards. You know, Rudy Gobert, not exactly the same comparison, but he had 14 rebounds yesterday, 2 offensive. So if we look at DeAndre Ayton from a points plus rebounds perspective, it's at 26.5. But we could also just look at him from a double-double perspective as well. So I'd probably just lean points, go get your 15. I don't mean to be all over DeAndre Ayton, but he did cash for us with ease last time in the early third quarter, right? In terms of, we started with a player prop there. In terms of what we got from a spread perspective, I'll take the Trailblazers here. I do not want to be messing with the Pelicans on a back-to-back, especially with some of the injuries that they've had this season. Back-to-back spots, 37.5% cover rate. So obviously, is that a 63.5% non-cover rate? And you look at Portland with a rest advantage, which they have here, 62.5% in terms of their cover rate there. So yeah, Portland, they played well against Detroit, did not end up pulling it out, obviously, but that was enough for me to say, okay, well, I'm still kind of fading the Pelicans to some degree. Total-wise, this is kind of a spot-on number, if you ask me. Like, I wouldn't sit here and tell you that there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I'd ultimately lean towards the under if I did really have to, but it'd probably be like, I think I would peg this one at maybe 223, 224, so yeah, I think this is a pretty damn good spotted line. I'd still lean towards the under because who's to say that either one of these teams are going to, be able to score? We have the 28th and 27th ranked offensive efficiency teams. You throw that into the mix with the fact that we have bad defenses, sure, but the Pelicans like to shoot in the paint, and I'm surprised I didn't mention this right away. Portland, I tell you guys, they're a sneaky team at defending the paint. So, Pelicans are going to try to elect to get into the paint, and I think Portland says no. So I go Portland plus the points, as well as a look at Ayton. Denny Avdija is listed as questionable. If he doesn't play, I do like Ayton and his points plus rebounds, probably even a little bit more. Real quick, guys, if you do want to support us even further than hitting the like button and hitting the subscribe button, consider picking up some of our merch. I'll put it in the merch bar right here on YouTube, so you can either find it, I think, in probably like right here in the bottom left of your screen, or you'll find it in the description, just pictures of the merch. Go ahead and check it out. This is like legit quality stuff. I tell you guys all the time, we get samples, we test it. We do not just put a crappy piece of a logo on a crappy piece of clothing, you know what I mean? So go ahead and check it out. Again, the merch will help us out, helps you get it. We have great prices with great materials as well. So if you do want to continue supporting us and get some great merch at the same time, consider heading over there and picking up some merch. GuyBostonSports.com/store. Also, FadeMe.store. Take you to the exact same place. They redirect to the same storefront. So go ahead and check out the merch. But let's go ahead and jump back into these games here. Finished up with the Pelicans one. Now let's move on to the next. Denver taking on the Clippers. So Denver coming off of the game last night against the Celtics, one in which the Celtics did just pull away, which didn't surprise me. No Jokic, right? So, like, obviously that's going to be huge. Dario Saric, who started in place of Jokic, played 16 minutes, so not a bunch of minutes, 0 points, 1 rebound. Like, that is, you're replacing Jokic with that. Now, we did see tons of minutes from Strother, DeAndre Jordan, Peyton Watson off the bench, so obviously Saric wasn't a one-to-one, apples-to-apples comparison for Jokic, but overall, the Celtics were able to pull away. Clips coming off of a loss to Minnesota. Now, they did cover. They were 2.5-point dogs in that game. They lose by 2. This one, if Jokic is a go, which I think he's listed as probable, I think we have a good old-fashioned good game on our hands. Kawhi looks like he's suiting up. James Harden's playing. Jokic and Aaron Gordon both listed as potential plays. Aaron Gordon questionable, but Jokic probable. So we could just have both teams fully healthy, which we'd love to see because we've seen these two teams play already 3 times so far this season, but obviously no Kawhi in those. We've had various injuries on the Denver side of things, so it'd be good to see 2 of these Western Conference teams healthy. But so far this year, back in early October, 109-104 win for the Clippers, 126-124 win for the Clippers, and then Denver 120-98 last time they were in Denver. I think I ultimately end up leaning towards Denver in this spot. Now, Denver has looked pretty good on back-to-backs this season, which is crazy. In terms of covering, 86% of their back-to-back games they've covered on. On the flip side, LA, the Clippers, with a rest advantage, have covered in 67% of games. I do think Denver is starting to, play a little bit better defense. Have they been the best defense all year long? Hell no. But they're starting to play a little bit better defense, and I think that's what's going to come through for them here, especially given the fact that if they do, so if the Clips like to isolate, if they do isolate, which they do with James Harden a lot, this is Denver's team, who is the 8th best team in terms of preventing scores off isolation, which will be huge. And if Denver takes it into the paint, I think they should be able to score against this Clippers team, get Zubac in foul trouble and that type of thing. So yeah, can you make an argument for the Clippers? Sure, they're the favorite in this game, but I kind of like Denver at home as dogs here for plus 115. But if you're on the Clippers, do not let me talk you off of that. In terms of what we have from a total, I've already seen this move to 227.5, which is a slight movement, but I like the under in this one. We saw it with the Nuggets last night. Both these teams are ranked 11th and 12th in terms of pace, but when they need to and push comes to shove, both teams can slow it down. We know that about the Clippers, and in years past, we've known that about Denver, right? But if both these teams, I've already talked about sort of the defense, right? Play some defense. I like the under 227.5 in this one. And no major player props. Obviously, I want to see if Jokic plays, if Aaron Gordon plays. No major player props as of right now for me. Milwaukee taking on San Antonio. I do think I end up leaning towards Milwaukee at home here, but we're going to want to wait this injury out. So Jeremy Sohan listed out for San Antonio, but Middleton, Jackson, and Giannis all listed as probable for Milwaukee. If Giannis doesn't play, take everything I say back. But I do like Milwaukee to be able to get into the paint and score in this spot. Now, San Antonio's been a good paint defense, do not get me wrong, but I like the idea of Giannis takeover style game in this one. He's coming off a game in which, yes, he had a triple-double, but weirdly enough, he had a triple-double. He only had, I think 11 points. And this is a spot in which this is a very good isolation defense in San Antonio. So I don't see Damian Lillard having the best game here. I think Giannis is going to get to the line a lot and get fouled a lot, which will help Milwaukee kind of put points on the board. That's not even my favorite player prop. I have a player prop that I really like in this spot. But give me Milwaukee minus 5.5 points with that sort of Giannis game in mind. In terms of what we have from a total, both of these teams definitely starting to show some defensive elevation compared to the rest of the league. Milwaukee, last 3 games here, 5th in terms of defensive efficiency. Now, you look at the teams they've played. Okay, sure, they've played some dog water teams, right? Toronto, Brooklyn, and Portland. But nonetheless, even still on the season, they've sat there and been the number 10 team in terms of defensive efficiency, and San Antonio just outside of the top 10. So I think we could see some defense here overall. San Antonio is going to try and score in the paint. Milwaukee, number 5 team on the season in terms of preventing that. Milwaukee's going to shoot a decent amount of threes. San Antonio covers that fairly well. So I could see both teams having some frustrations offensively. So give me the under in this spot. Now, what I'm looking at player prop wise is going to be a guy that's burned us multiple times, but now we have plus money tonight. Brook Lopez over 1.5 3-pointers made. When you think about who he's going up against, which would be obviously, Victor Wembanyama, right? I don't think these guys are going to want to take it into the paint against Wemby. Brook Lopez against teams, so this Spurs team ranks, I believe, 17th in terms of 3-pointers allowed overall this season, right? 3-pointers allowed, not points from 3, so quantity. Brook Lopez this season over his last 10 games of 3-pointers allowed, right? Of teams that are ranked 17th or worse in 3-pointers allowed, he's averaging 2.8 threes per game, and he's hitting 9 of those 10. So this could be a good spot for Brook Lopez for plus money. Now, I will say the dude's burned us multiple times. He had a stint on the DNB graveyard, which the only guy on there right now is Paul George, front and center, and now he's injured, of course, right? But Brook Lopez had a little stint on the DNB graveyard. Hopefully he can kind of help us out here in cash roast, because I do really like the idea of him taking a couple threes here in this spot. Again, not taking it down low against Wemby, in which Wemby might send his you-know-what. So I'm going to lean towards him over 1.5 3-pointers made. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.